Oh, I just wanted to mention the other thing that's kind of hanging out there is, you know, the tree ordinance. It's another one we spent a lot of time on, and you know, it is listed in this particular bullet point. You know, maybe some more discussions on it was kicked to the township committee, and the township committee was just concerned about people's property rights. You know, if it, you want to take down a tree, and, you know, all of a sudden you got to get a permit, or, you know, start to get the owners. You know, there was a lot of discussion, planning board on that. So, you know, that's something else that's kind of hanging out there.
But is it really hanging out there now?
Well, maybe it's a mute issue, but you know, something that never advanced.
Okay.
The next bullet, Jim, this was the impervious coverage changes, which, were they ever done?
Yes, not in particular. It's mentioning the I-21 and B11 zones, and 75% impervious coverage is what's allowed, and there was some discussion and recommendation to go down to 65%.
It's still at 75, isn't it?
It is still at 75, and what I was going to say is when we took a closer look at that, I think we realized that we were going to create a lot of non-conforming properties just because there's a lot of small lots in particular the 11 zone, you know, and it seemed to present a problem, a creative problem. And as we look further, I know there's another section where we did also talk about the limits of impervious coverage for the residential zones. It previously was, you know, 75% was kind of like a blanket, but we did establish, this is going back a number of years ago, we did establish impervious coverage limits for all the residential zones, and it's, you know, kind of appropriate for the size of the lots. So that was something that was changed. It did come out of this. We'll see that as we get further into the report.
It may not really be an issue today, because we did spend time on it before.
We don't seem to
Yes.
get a lot of applications where the applicants are proposing to exceed the impervious coverage. And I don't know, at the, you know, at the zoning board, I don't do bulk variances, I'm only in for the Ds, but there are a lot, because I think that the standards are pretty good, actually.
No, our standards that we set are pretty good, and my note was to eliminate this section,
But
Okay.
or this bullet point.
The next bullet is our favorite topic, traffic and congestion and intersections, and there were some specific studies that were recommended. I'm sure most of them were never done. Is that true, Jim?
Yeah, some of this stuff was done. I mean, just to kind of go through the list, and I have a whole list of intersections, and then, you know, after I go through that list, if the board has any other ones, you know, we can add them on there. But the first item talked about the addition of a longer right turn lane, Hanover Avenue and Whippany Road. I mean, that goes towards the stacking issue that exists there. There were some adjustments made to the timing of that signal, but you know, that's got to remain on there because there's, I believe the state still needs to do some work there. The next one talks about increased curb radius at Hanover and Ridgedale, and I believe the county did do some work a while back on that, but the upgrades that were recently completed by the developer of the improvements for the development in Hanover have really addressed that. So, you know, that's been addressed, and we can mention that. There's also the stub streets issue that was brought up by Craig with, you know, having the ability to turn around emergency service vehicles. You know, that still exists, but we are kind of plugging away, and we have done some improvements on a couple of roads, specifically Carlton Street and White Birch. We were able to incorporate some cul-de-sacs in place. But as far as intersections that I was going to mention that specifically need improvements, obviously Park and Columbia. The improvements have been completed, but I think it's worth mentioning at Hanover, MLK, and Horse Hill Road. Columbia and Normandy is another intersection that's going to be addressed as part of the redevelopment of the Honeywell site. Punch Bowl and Madison is something that was mentioned previously. And the state is actually, there's a fairly high accident history at that location, but the state is actually advancing a signal at that location. We were contacted over the past year for some information on that. Madison and Normandy is another intersection that came out of the Honeywell discussions, that there's a specific stacking problem in the evening where you need to have really the 2 lanes to run through that intersection as you're going westbound on Madison Avenue at Normandy. The state did do some groundwork for doing those improvements, but it hasn't advanced, but the state is aware that something needs to happen at that location. Hanover between Speedwell and Burnham, we talked about that. That choke point of 4 lanes going down to 2 lanes really needs to be addressed. And that's what I had, I mentioned the Ridgedale Avenue improvements. Any other intersections that, come to mind? I mean, maybe this is the location also to mention, or it may be further down, but the Quarry Road, Railroad Bridge.
Not just because of the bridge, because it is the traffic on it is increasing, and it's an alternative for Hanover. So
Right.
it's been backing up a lot.
Jim, did you say that there is a possibility of a light going on Hunchbolt Road?
Yes, the state is,
Because what has happened to the realigning of Canfield into Hunchbolt to stop that incredibly bad turn to get across?
as part of the request from the state for information, we told them that that alignment should be part of, or at a minimum, the intersection, if they're going to put the light up, they should at least design it for that eventual realignment, assuming that something's going to happen at the Abbey property where you could, get the right of way as part of that development. Any other intersections that I might have missed that anyone can think of that are problematic?
There are a couple of homes on Turnpike Road that have to cross the grade without any, or can they get across there?
Is that all part,
You know what I mean?
At the old golf course?
will that all be part of that grade zone?
Yeah, that will be addressed as part of the Honeywell redevelopment, where they'll bring that driveway into the Honeywell driveway, and that quiet crossing, those plans are advancing just to, I believe they were submitted to DOT for the quiet crossing, just to bring the plane board to speed on that.
Anything else on intersections? Then the last bullet was a recommendation to look at the bulk regulations, specifically residential. And Jim, that was sort of old news. I think that's something we don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was looked at, and the decision was made not to make any changes to that. So I had that bullet being eliminated.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, it's 9 o'clock and we finished that section. It may be a decent time to break, and as we indicated earlier, since we still have to spend some time in close.